Greetings. I'm going to wrap up the discussion of the Green River killings, first with part 6 by Goulian and Smith from the Seattle Times, and then from Goulian's book on the Green River killings to provide a small profile of the case. Okay, part 6 from the Seattle Times. The big question is, could the killer strike again? 5 years and 46 murders later, that is a serious question under dispute. Remember that these articles are from September 14th through 18th, 1987, so you have to consider the technology at that time. And also I would remind you that Sheriff Reichert had done a lot of hard work with his task force, and a lot of the officers had spent countless hours working on this case, and that's not necessarily presented from that point of view. And I again recommended both Goulian's book and Reichert's book to be read, together, because I think it's real important to get, the journalistic view as well as the law enforcement view. The system, though, was failing juvenile prostitutes, and that was a big problem. And teenagers knew how to work the system, and there was minimal or no assistance to teenage prostitutes, and they were treated like juvenile delinquents rather than victims, and this, of course, put them at risk. So in regards to if the killer could strike again, there were some suggested reforms made by several people, such as creating resources for prostitutes, having a shelter network or specialized living quarters, and decriminalization of prostitution by youth, and treating youth prostitutes as victims rather than criminals, and also stronger laws to deal with the Johns and the pimps, additional training, and greater collaboration between police and social workers, and also stepping up the outreach that could be done. Also, looking at the high-tech system at that time, we did see that there were some major improvements in the police department, and to include, for example, a new high-tech computer system, and also a portable fingerprint detection system, and additional outdoors crime scene training, the development and implementation of a missing persons unit. And so we see this also come into play. So to kind of update into 2001, Gary Ridgeway was arrested for the Green River murders. He plea bargained to avoid the death penalty, and part of his agreement was that he would assist with victim identification, and yes, he was the owner of that green truck. Now, moving on to Goulian's work, Serial Killers, Issues Explored Through the Green River Murders, and this is published by Pearson Prentice Hall in 2007, and this gives a really detailed analysis. The original book came with a DVD that actually had interviews conducted by some of the law enforcement officers as well as psychologists with Gary Ridgway. But basically, the idea here presented by Goulian from his book is that Ridgway evolved into a serial killer. In his early years, he was a bedwetter, and his mother acted sexually inappropriate with him through exposing herself, and also she bathed him up to age 12, which is inappropriate, sexually abusive scenario. He was also sexually attracted to his mother, but he also had hatred toward her for her abusive behaviors. In essence, Goulian points out violence and sexuality became merged for Ridgway. He also led a double life, and there's a couple of theories that we talked about earlier in the course: fractured identity syndrome and also doubling. And while he was in the Navy, and stationed in the Philippines, he used prostitutes, and he had developed an interest in watching women put bottles into their vaginas. He also married several times and had a son. He did claim he choked his second wife once when he was angry and noticed he had become sexually aroused. He visited prostitutes. He had a lot of girlfriends, but he did view himself, his self-perception, as a failure, and he had rage regarding women, and he believed that women controlled his emotions. He also believed he had been a victim and cheated by others, and he wanted to shock the community. And we did see that he stopped killing for a while after he married his third wife, and he hung out with his wife, he went to church, he read the Bible, he got pets, and he joined a multi-level marketing gig selling products. But he still killed, although not as frequently, and he also became more careless with his murders. And he was finally caught, and you can read in greater detail about this online or through some other videos, but it's a fascinating case, and it was a long case, and it was a horrific case for all those involved, the families, the law enforcement officers, the community. And certainly what I do is look back at this and think about, what this can teach us from theoretical perspectives, from investigatory perspectives, and also what we can learn from any mistakes that were made from this case. So it's good to do an analysis of any errors and to think about how we might apply different methodologies in the future. And this wraps up this video. Thank you.